Hey everybody, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to make a really quick one. It's getting kind of late. I'm not outside walking around, and I really wanted to make a video on, honestly, I was going to make it on white coat syndrome, but I changed my mind at the last second, and I wanted to make it on impending doom. Because if you've been following me, you've really seen that I say that I've come a long way in a lot of my personal progressions and a lot of my videos, which is true. As I've also said, I'm never one to say that I'm out of the woods. And this feeling is something that is still lingers. And I used to think that a different symptom was going to be my last one. But in fact, I think it's this one. And it's not even a symptom. It's more of just like a feeling or a sensation, which I'm going to kind of get into because I think it's different for everybody. And I kind of want to see or toss it back to you and see how it applies to you and how you feel it in your body and what thoughts go through your mind when you actually experience this. So let's jump into that. Please don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And I really do want to see the comments come through in terms of what you guys and girls feel and think, because I think it just depends on the actual area of fear that you have, especially when it comes to health anxiety. Like mine was heart-based, so my mind goes to heart. I think the sensation is kind of the same for everybody, but the fear and the feeling goes to like a different part of the body, if that makes sense. So I kind of want to check that out. Now, to preface this, if you've seen my symptoms video that I have on here and made in the past, like I had, hundreds of symptoms and sensations all over my body. Some were longer lasting than others. Some were shorter term. Some went away as soon as I got reassurance. For the most part, most of them went away when I had reassurance, except for some of the ones that I was really fearful of. They hung around for a lot longer. And I did have to make some changes and some lifestyle changes, implement some kind of dietary changes and things like that. And then those and also some supplements that I started taking too, and then those kind of cleared up. Mainly like ectopic heartbeats and stuff, which I used to have hundreds a day. Now it's down to, essentially one a day, if that. I really don't feel them daily for sure. Sometimes I could go months without feeling them, and then sometimes I could have one or two in a day. And then I could have, maybe one in back-to-back days, and then it goes long periods of time where I don't have them again. Maybe, in time I'll sit down and actually try to map out if I do feel them, when I feel them, because I still have some lingering anxiety. And it just changes in terms of what's kind of left over. So let's jump into that and kind of piggyback off of what I was talking about. So before, this used to scare me a whole hell of a lot more than it does now. Now, sometimes when I feel it, I can feel it kind of coming on and building up. And it might kind of throw my nervous system like for a little bit of a loop and put my nerves like on edge. But consciously and logically, I'm not in the same deep hole, dark place that I was before. I remember it happening when I was actually on a therapy call with a therapist. I was sitting in my car at the park because I used to like to still try to go for walks and things. And I could just feel it like building and sitting there. And I was sitting there just like kind of like curled up waiting for, essentially for me, it was like a heart stopping thing. So it's the feeling is like you could be sitting there, I could be sitting there totally fine. And I think my subconscious kind of drifts off to body scanning. And I will feel, a lot of times it actually like feels like it builds from the stomach and it builds from the gut. But it's like in this acute, instant panic feeling. It's like kind of the best way that I could describe it is it could go from 0 to 60. It goes like, that's why I say acute. It happens immediately. It's not really like a long ramp up time, but sometimes you could feel it building like in the stomach. You could feel yourself getting a little bit nervous, and then like all of a sudden it's like bang, it comes on and hits you. But it's like an immediate panic, fear, that you are going to drop, like you're just going to die. Like a lot of people say something bad's gonna happen, but for me, like I'm being realistic. It was just I'm gonna die, and for me, it was heart based because my fears were all centered around the heart. So immediately, my mind, which my conscious mind still immediately goes there, I'm much quicker to kind of pull it back because I keep, I always said, like I felt it numerous times by now. If something was going to happen to me, something would have happened to me, and the heart's been checked all the time, which I always tell everybody. Make sure you get all that stuff checked and make sure you get everything serious ruled out, and then you kind of know, like, okay, if this is anxiety that's just building, it's just my nerves that are causing me the issue right now. It's not the organ or whatever area of the body is actually causing you the most fear. But for me, it was heart-centered, heart-focused. So I would think that my heart was literally just stopping or going to stop immediately, and then my lights were just going to turn off, basically. I was just going to go black. And it's still the same thing now as it was months ago. It just doesn't scare me as much. So again, you could be sitting there, all of a sudden you'll feel this like acute panicky sensation. I used to feel panic all the time if I used to be able to like feel my heartbeat or feel a skip beat or feel a missed beat, right? And that's kind of the norm. That's like the run-of-the-mill heart anxiety. If you're hypersensitive and hypersensitized to your heartbeat and your heart and things like that, when you feel it, when it misses a beat, anything like that, you get the immediate panic flood. But I think the thought process is different because like you just immediately go into, like, I guess, fight or flight, and your adrenaline and your cortisol start going. Your body immediately goes into you just fight or flight mode, extreme anxiety. Whereas now it's a little bit different because I don't have the same symptoms that I had before. Most of them, if not all of them, are for the most part gone. Like I can sit around and I don't feel my heartbeat and things the way that I used to feel them. And the weird thing, and this is going to tie into an addiction to suffering, okay, which I hear some people mention, and if you've never heard about it, if you've never done any thinking about it, take a minute to think about that, whether you are or English difficult, whether you are or are not addicted to suffering. It doesn't have to be consciously, it can be subconsciously. And I realized, and I found out that I 100% am, because it doesn't matter whether I'm feeling the symptoms and negative about them. You can go into panic mode that way. And then when you think that, I would do anything just to not have this stuff, and then when you do get a break, eventually, at least this happened with me. I don't know, it's obviously not going to be everybody, but it happened with me. When you do start to get better and get breaks, you get so accustomed to feeling your heartbeat, and that becoming the norm for you, that when you become a little bit more desensitized to that and you start to not feel that, you search for that. And if you don't feel that, you still go into fight. Like I still can go into fight or flight. Sorry, turn the light on. I can still go into fight or flight over that. And that's when it hits me now. So before, it used to be when I used to feel something that could put me in a fight or flight, and I would tell myself, I would do anything just not feel this. But now the flip side and the reverse happens. I could be sitting there doing just fine, not feeling anything, and the fact that I don't feel anything can still be just as scary and still freak me out, because I think subconsciously I still scan for these things. I still look for the heartbeat, make sure that it's beating, how fast is it beating, is it going faster? And that's my next step, obviously. Like that's my next step to, I think, fully recover, or at least get me to say like 95% recovery, is to realize, I don't have to subconsciously realize, I should say, not because consciously I realize I don't have to do that, but to kind of convince my subconscious that we don't have to do that anymore. Like we don't have to scan the body. We don't have to look for things that are going wrong with the heart anymore, because it's all been checked out. We can start to, develop some sort of trust in ourselves and in our body now. And we don't have to spend our time always being on guard, always being on the lookout for bad things to happen. because, you know, much more than likely bad things are not going to happen, because again, like I said before, if they were going to happen, they would have happened already, right? A lot of people have struggled for years with this. So I think overall, like since this whole thing started to happen to me, it's probably been close to 2 years now. And it just, if you allow it to keep going, like it will never stop. So I think you do have to eventually start to put your foot down and, you know, figure out what's kind of causing it, figure out what your greatest fears are, you know, figure out what kind of causes you to go into like panic mode and fight or flight, what makes you uneasy. Because I heard someone else say it too, like it doesn't matter what it is. If you focus, you know, if you're in a negative mindset and you focus on anything for too long, you know, you could freak yourself out. And that is the case. I mean, it was the case with me. It's probably the case for like 90+% of people who are dealing with health anxiety and have had it pretty bad. But I was just curious. Like I was curious because everybody, you know, some people, they do talk about impending doom, and a lot of, you know, channels and YouTube channels and things like that, they'll mention it. But they don't talk about a feeling that's linked to it. So there's not really anything. They just say, oh, well, it's a sense of dread, right? There's a sense of like something bad's going to happen. Like, okay. But if you're in a negative mind state, like everybody has that. Like I mean, I had that 24/7 for long stretches of time, you know? But it's not always linked to a physical kind of sensation or a feeling. So I kind of wanted to make this video to put that out there and just kind of put a little bit of a definition or a description of what it was like to me. And that's like sometimes it could be felt in the stomach at first, like a little buildup of nerves, and all of a sudden, like it's just on you, and it's just like acute panic setting in. Like there's no time to kind of do anything, and it's just like you're going to drop. And I think that's why I said I want everybody to comment who sees this and who's felt it, and kind of let me know and let everybody else know so they know that they're not like alone in feeling it, what the negative thought was that followed it. So for me, again, it was, you know, I could be sitting there, I could feel this, and all of a sudden, like I can't, you know, I could be like, I can't tune into my body. And if that was the case, I feel like, oh, well, something's got to be wrong. Something's going to be just shutting off. And you can tell that you have triggers because every time that you, like with me too, if it's mentioned, it could be still like a little triggering. It could still set off like fight or flight. And that's kind of what made me decide to want to make the video. And like I said, I was going to make it on like white coat, but I decided to change it at the last minute because I was getting these feelings. I was like, I'm just going to make it about that. And that's really the only thing that I wanted to say. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to make this one look a little bit shorter. And sorry for me just walking around the apartment. So if I'm turning the camera around and you get a little motion sickness, I apologize. But yeah, let me know what you deal with, what you think. Have you ever had these feelings and just became fearful of it and didn't actually even know what it was? And this might help reassure you that other people deal with the same thing. They just have a name for it. Or if you're somebody that's seen videos on Impending Doom before, but there's just not a description for it, and you're like, I've kind of maybe felt something like that, but I still think that it's the world coming to an end, the walls closing in, whatever the case may be, whatever definition you have for it. Let me know. And if you're somebody that suffers from health anxiety, cardiophobia, and you've had the same exact thing, like you get your acute panicky feeling and you just don't feel anything associated with it, you think that your heart's going to stop or whatever, let me know. I actually am very curious to see what other people have gone through and what other people have to say about it. So with that being said, I'll end the video there. Thank you very much for making it to the end, and I'll catch you in the next one.